guys, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to take you on a 6-month update on this haul that I got from Hausermann Orchids. So when I first started this channel, I did my very first haul with you guys with these 10 orchids, and I wanted to update you on how they were doing after 6 months because I find that they are doing so much right now. I'm very happy overall with how everything turned out because these orchids were the first few orchids that I experimented with semi-hydro, for instance. And a lot of these are some species and orchids that I've never grown before. So I want to walk you through how each of these orchids are doing and give a progress update. So let me take you a little bit closer and we'll go orchid by orchid. Up first, I'm going to show you my Phalaenopsis stars Fiona. So this was my first Phalaenopsis orchid that I transitioned over into semi-hydro. What makes me so happy about this orchid is that it was a clearance orchid from Hausermann. I got it on September 22nd from this box and I repotted it right away. And it surprised me with 2 flower spikes, which is wonderful. And these flower spikes pretty much formed pretty soon after I repotted it. So I repotted it on September 27th, and then I got my first flower spike on October 24th, so about a month later, and then the next one just 2 weeks after that. Now these orchids have been in bloom. They began blooming Christmas Day, so this has been in bloom for almost 4 months, which is wonderful. The first bloom opened up on Christmas Day, and then on the second spike, we had our first bloom show up January 8th. So this orchid is going almost on 4 months in bloom. However, this morning I noticed we have one of the flowers fading. So these are going to end soon, but I'm extremely happy with this orchid. It's the first one that I transitioned to semi-hydro. I'll link the video down below to show the progress of this repotted. I did a 3-month transition update with this one, so I'll link it below so you can see in more detail how this did. But I'm so happy with this one. It cost me $5.99, and I have a beautiful display here. And what I love about these Phalaenopsis orchids is they're so easy to care for, and they come back every year. Up next is Phalaenopsis Elle Bears King, and I am so happy with this one. This just opened up for me 2 days ago, which is what prompted me to do this video. But I got this orchid. It had a spike. It had one flower spike that did not open. You can see it right here. And then it had a bud that blasted about a month ago. So this one, I was sort of hoping I'd get the bloom sooner. This was already a mature plant. It's got another bud underneath, which I think might blast since it's very yellow, but it's got some other flower spikes that have formed. So in terms of how this orchid has been doing, it's been incredible. So this is one of my most vigorous orchids, and I repotted it as soon as I got it into sphagnum moss, since this is a summer bloomer, and the roots, this is one of the most prolific growers that I have. As you can see, it's outgrown the pot, so I'm gonna have to cut this pot open very soon. But the root system has been insane. So I can say that these orchids from Hausermann are extremely vigorous. The flower that opened up is just wonderful. It smells very citrusy. It's supposed to smell like oranges. I can confirm it smells very citrusy, very fruity, smells a bit like Fruity Pebbles. It's very, very pleasant. It was actually fragrant before it fully opened up, which was really nice. The leaves are very shiny. They're sort of like lily pads. They've got a little dust on them, so I have to clean them off since they've been on my shelves for some time. But we've got 3 flower spikes, 1 branching, another bud coming through. This just produced a lot of roots when I got it before it started opening up its flowers. I think this is going to be one of my favorite orchids, and I don't think that the camera can do this flower justice. It's just so beautiful. The details on the flower are so Small, but very, very pretty. I truly love this one, and I'm so excited to have it in my collection. I'm unfortunately going to have to repot this right away. It was so vigorous that it just started throwing those roots into the pot immediately. So it's a happy orchid. Already will need a bigger pot. This is a 5-inch pot. I'll throw it into a 6-inch pot next, but I'll probably keep the sphagnum moss to keep those roots nice and warm. Up next is Phalaenopsis Hieroglyphica. I believe I repotted her the same day that I repotted Elle Bear's King. I'll put a video down below so you could see how this was when I first repotted it. But guys, as you can see, this orchid has just been blooming prolifically. So this orchid has 7 spikes, which is crazy to me. But when it came to me, it had 3 spikes. They were not in bloom yet. So this orchid spiked for the first time shortly after I got it, and it gave me 2 flowers. As you can see, right here is where the other flowers were, and then the new flower spikes started forming. These came out around November. Then more spikes started branching. Now I'll say that because this is still a pretty young orchid, the flower spikes are small, and there's a lot of overcrowding over here. This is a beautiful bloom, but these flower spikes are very, very short. We've got so many nice, beautiful flowers. This one is unfortunately not fragrant, but check out the little fuzzy lip. I really enjoy it. This is such a nice orchid. It's very easy to care for. I've got it in sphagnum moss topped with a layer of bark on top, and I just can't get enough of these flowers. I guess my only wish is that I wish it were more fragrant, but just given the beauty of this orchid, I can't complain. Just take a look at that beautiful fuzzy lip. I love this orchid. It's so easy, and I'm just so pleased to have it in my collection along with Elle Bear's King. In continuing the theme with these summer bloomers, I've got Phalaenopsis Bellina Platinum crossed with Phalaenopsis Bellina Red Star. And over here, I've got Phalaenopsis Violacea, variation Indigo crossed with Sibling. So these orchids have been doing very well. These are seedlings. These are very fragrant summer bloomers. They've grown really nicely for me. I put them into sphagnum moss. I've recently took their outer pot out. I noticed that the roots were coming out pretty quickly. But so far, they're doing really well. They've put out 2 leaves of growth. So this is new, and this was a leaf that grew over the winter. And I'm very happy with it. This is 100% in sphagnum moss. The roots are growing in really, really nicely. I love the shiny leaves on these. I do have to clean them. Now that we're in spring, I have to do a little bit of maintenance, so I'll get to that next weekend. But so far, so good. One surprise that I found is with Phalaenopsis Violacea. So Phalaenopsis Violacea has put out a flower spike, and I didn't expect them to. This was supposed to be, looking at my notes, 1 to 2 years from blooming, and it's already put out a flower spike. Let me see if I can get you a little bit closer. You can see it from behind. So here's the flower spike on this one. It'll probably bloom over the summer. I was told these can bloom pretty young. This one has only put out 1 leaf since I've gotten it, but the leaf is larger than previous leaves, which is wonderful, and it's set up the same way. These have been pretty vigorous as well. The root system has gone through the pot. They were in tiny little sleeves when I first got them, and they didn't have too many roots. I wouldn't say that they were in bad shape at all. They just had a couple of viable roots, but I'll say that once I repotted it, they just really took off. So I'm happy with both of these, and Hausermann was my introduction into the summer bloomers. All right, next up we've got Zygopetalum Arthur Elle crossed with Zygo Blue Blazes. So this one I repotted when I received it. The root system was really, really nice. It came in a 2-inch pot, and I put it in a 4-inch square pot, and it's outgrown the pot. So I'll say when I first repotted this, everything was flat, but now it's like raising up out of the pot. I'm also noticing that the roots are starting to come through the pot. So I think I'm gonna have to repot this one soon. I'm a bit conflicted. As you guys know, I've been transitioning a lot of orchids into semi-hydroponics, but I think this one is doing well in sphagnum moss, so I may keep it in that system. I'm still deciding what I want to do, but so far so good. I do notice that some of the leaves have yellowed and fallen off, but these are the outermost leaves, so I think that's normal. This is my one and only Zygopetalum. I don't have any others, but so far I find this one extremely vigorous. The root system has filled up this 4-inch pot, and I had a layer of bark on top. If you can believe it, as I said, it was pretty flat, and now it's raised. So the roots are really pushing through, as you can see. But this one is really, really nice. This is 3 years from blooming. Maybe I'll get blooms sooner. I'm finding that Hausermann was conservative with some of these, because as you saw, there was a spike on my Bellina pretty early. And even my Stars Fiona wasn't supposed to bloom until next year, but happy with this one. So excited for this one. This one's Brassocattleya Digbyana. This I received 3 to 4 years from blooming. It's been growing really nicely. This was one of my first Brassocattleya types that I put into semi-hydro, and it really took off. So I did a care collab video on this one, and as you guys know, my cat knocked this down, so I had to repot it right away. But when I first got it, the roots were, a few months in, the roots were coming down from the bottom, growing right into the water reservoir. When I repotted, I tucked the roots back into the pot so that they're not touching the water. But so far, this growth has come out, this growth has matured, and then this growth, I believe, was smaller when I first received it, and we have a new growth coming in right over here. So I am extremely pleased with this one. Supposed to be 3 to 4 years from blooming. I can't wait to see this. This is a beautiful orchid. I got it very reasonably priced because it's a seedling, but I'm very patient and I look forward to seeing blooms maybe in the next 2 years. If it's sooner, I'll be over the moon because I really, really like the flowers on this one. Up next, we've got Brassocattleya Yellowbird. So looking at my notes, this orchid was 1 to 2 years from blooming. I'll say that we have sheaths that have started forming. It hasn't bloomed yet, but the orchid is growing bigger and bigger growth. So this was a newer growth that came in that is now taller than everything else. When I first got it, I'll say that I had to cut some of the tips of the leaves off because the light was too strong and it had some black spotting that just took over. I was a little bit nervous about that because it was inside of the leaves. I'll see if I find a picture. If I do, I'll put it up so you can see it. Basically, there were these black spots that were indented into the leaves, and it was seen on both sides, and it looked like it was eating away at the leaves. So I cut it off. I put cinnamon on it. I was a little worried at first. I kept it under high light conditions. There is some spotting on these leaves, as you can see. There's a lot of purpling, but nothing, this is no dents or anything into the orchid. Maybe that was a bacterial infection, I don't know. This orchid has been in semi-hydroponics. I'll link the video below where I repotted it, and it's just full of roots. I am shocked with this one. So this one also it had a nice root system, but not very extensive rather. And it's full of algae. It looks a little bit, it's a little bit full of algae, but that's okay. The roots are just going insane. There are little sheaths forming on the inside. Let me see if I could take you a little bit closer. You can see one right over here. Let me brighten that up for you. There's a sheath coming in over here. We have about 3 of them. We'll see if we get a bloom this summer. I truly look forward to seeing what this orchid does, but I am extremely pleased with this progress here with these leaves. I think it's happy. I think it'll bloom soon, and I hear the fragrance is just completely out of this world. So this one's doing really well. Next up, we've got Neofinetia Falcata. This one is Neofinetia Falcata crossed with Falcata Hisui. Guys, this is the third time this has a spike. So in the last 6 months. So when I first got this orchid, it came in bloom. I'll link the original video down below so you can see it when I received it. But it was in a bark setup, and I was a little bit nervous to transition this over into semi-hydroponics. So when I first got it, I let the blooms basically fade until I did the repotting, since blooms take up a lot of energy from these orchids. And I ended up repotting it right after the blooms faded. I repotted it along with the Yellowbird and the Brassocattleya Digbyana. And I could not be more pleased with how this orchid is doing. So it came with multiple fans. This orchid, I remember being $20, and Neofinetia orchids tend to be pretty expensive depending on where you're getting them from. Here you can see the spike right over here. So I am so pleased. I noticed this as soon as I came back from vacation. I was very excited to see it. As you can see, it's right here. This bloomed for me as well back in February, Feb 11th. To be precise. And now today is April 11th. So 2 months after that last bloom, it's back in bloom from a different fan this time. So I'm so excited about it. I am very happy with this orchid. And as you know, the fragrance is out of this world. This one I did a care collab video on, but it's living its best life in this semi-hydro method. I find that the temperatures that it enjoys is pretty varied. This one can stay pretty cool and be just fine. I am giving it a decent amount of lights. The leaves are purpling a little bit, which is okay. But given that it keeps pushing out these spikes in my care, I think I'm getting it right, so I'm not going to change a thing. So this is my Neofinetia Falcata. Up next is my Bellera Patricia McCully Pacific Matriarch. This one is, when I purchased it, it was described as being 2 to 3 years from blooming as I look at my notes. Since I received it, it's pushed out 3 different growths. So one here, over here, and then there was a new growth coming in. Maybe it was 2. Yeah, it was just 2. What I noticed with this orchid is it's very prone to leaf spotting. So I don't know if I'm just not giving this enough air or if this is just one of those oncidiums that's very, very sensitive. This one's prone to more spotting than a lot of my other oncidiums. I'm having a hard time keeping up with the watering. I water it with the rest of my orchids, but I realize that there's a lot of wrinkling. So I've recently amped this up. I do try to keep a tiny bit of water in the reservoir, but because it's not warm, I don't do that often. I just leave a tiny amount. This, with the lights, this does tend to turn purple. So as you can see, this bulb, it was green when I first received it, and now it's purple. So I think it's just a trait of this orchid in particular. So for this one, I think I need to improve the culture. This one's a seedling still, so it's still a long ways to bloom. But I'm not very happy with the wrinkling, and that's my fault for not giving it more water. It was way more thirsty than I anticipated. That said, I find it's very healthy. It's throwing out a lot of roots, and we've got these 2 new growths that have popped out since I received it. So far, so good. Overall, I'll say I'm very pleased with how my Hausermann haul came out. These 10 orchids are all very vigorous. They were all very healthy. I received a few of them with less roots than they have now, and they've all really, really taken off. All 10 of them. I'm so happy with the vigor of all of these orchids, and I'm really, really happy with the blooms, especially on the Phalaenopsis Hieroglyphica. And I think LD Bear's King is going to be my favorite. I just love that fragrance. It's very citrusy, very fruity, Fruit Loops type of fragrance. Very, very sweet, very, very not floral, but it's just absolutely beautiful. And this one has Amboinensis in its parentage. And as you guys know, I hate the fragrance of Phalaenopsis amboinensis. Not my favorite, but oh my gosh, guys, I really, really love this one. If you guys are considering ordering from Hausermann or giving some of these orchids a try, I'll say that outside of the Beallera, I'm growing them really, really well. I find them very easy. They're not difficult at all. And if you ever are on the fence on ordering from Hausermann's, I say give it a try. This was my first order from them, and this is my 6-month update. Everything's doing really well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more updates like this. Take care, everyone. Bye.